Most people agree that Jesus was a good man. He must have been. The stories about him show somebody who cared about children in a way that was completely unusual for an adult Jewish male. He paid respect to women at a time when a normal rabbi would have ignored them completely, or even criticised them as nonsensical and dangerous. Women weren't even allowed to testify in court as a witness in a law case or to learn the scriptures, and yet Jesus even allowed them to be taught just like his male disciples. Jesus had time for the unfortunate, the marginalised and the disregarded. It often scandalised his ultra-correct religious opponents that he would spend time with people of bad reputation or foreigners or collaborators with the Roman regime. He just didn't seem to care. Anyone human was equally important to him, and he changed them too. The teaching he gave altered lives much more than anyone else in his day. He wasn't just a prophet peddling visions of the future. He was concerned about life in the here and now and how people treated each other. When you look at his recorded words in the Gospels, you soon realise you're reading thoughts that have a freshness, a depth, and an intensity that hadn't been matched in Jewish culture for many centuries. In all of the stories about him, there are only two which are sometimes quoted to show that he had sometimes lost his temper. That's when he cursed the fig tree and when he overturned tables in the temple. But if you read these stories in that way, you're misunderstanding them. There is actually no evidence of Jesus ever losing his temper, telling a lie, or treating others unfairly. Lots of celebrities disregard their own families when they become famous. Not Jesus. Even as he was dying in agony, he was thinking of his mother and making sure she would be looked after. But did he perform miracles? Obviously, there's more scepticism about this than any other part of the Jesus story. But as we pointed out last time, nobody denied that they had happened until 200 years later, when there was no eyewitnesses still alive. The reports of the miracles are careful and brief. The Gospel writers don't make a lot of them. They simply report them factually and move on. Luke, who appears to have been a qualified doctor, often uses very careful medical language in his reports. John ends his Gospel by saying casually, "There are many more miracles that Jesus did, and if they were all written down, the world wouldn't contain the books that would have to have been written." In his biography, he has recorded just 8. If he knew so many more, why didn't he describe them? The answer is clearly that he had said enough to establish his point. He didn't need to go on recounting wonders and marvels. People sometimes think that the books of those days must have been packed with miracles and fairy tales, because obviously people were much less educated and more credulous, weren't they? Not true. In fact, you don't find any contemporary accounts of miracle workers like Jesus, apart from Apollonius of Tyana, some whose feats sound a bit like the miracles of Jesus. But Apollonius lived quite a while after Jesus, and scholars suspect his followers borrowed Jesus' miracles to make Apollonius sound a bit more special. So why would anybody stick a good man who performed marvellous works on a cross to die? The answer has to be that Jesus made enemies too. He was liked by many ordinary people, but he was a threat to the establishment, and in the end the politicians couldn't let him continue. He had to go because he had threatened the whole way they had the country set up. What was so dangerous about his thinking? We'll examine that in a moment or two. But first, look at the 3 points we've made here. Jesus was good. Jesus may have been a miracle worker. Jesus made enemies. Do you agree, or can you see some objections?